Alara woke early that morning to the soft hum of the colony. The sun had not yet risen over the red dunes of Erythra, and the sky was a pale orange, stretching endlessly above the human settlement. She rubbed her eyes, still heavy with sleep, and walked to the small kitchen where the morning replicator buzzed quietly. Kale, her husband, was already there, stirring a cup of synthesized coffee with the calm precision she had come to associate with him. He looked ordinary, just as he always did, slightly taller than average, with dark hair that caught the dim light, and eyes that seemed to watch the world with a quiet curiosity. To anyone passing by, he would appear as nothing more than a skilled engineer, dedicated to the colony, always helpful and modest. To Alara, he was much more, but she had always believed that this more was just a reflection of his intelligence and his dedication. "Morning," Kale said, his voice steady, and handed her a steaming cup. "Morning," she replied, taking the cup and inhaling the warm aroma. "Did you sleep well?" Kale never complained, never spoke of discomfort or fatigue, and yet there were times he seemed to vanish for hours without explanation. She had asked him once long ago why he sometimes left the settlement for hours at a time, but he had only smiled and said, "Just thinking." "You know me, I tinker with thoughts as well as machines." She had accepted it, believing him ordinary but brilliant, a man devoted to the colony and to her. The colony of Erythra was small but thriving. Humans had built it with determination, carving life out of the harsh red desert that stretched for miles in every direction. The settlement consisted of modular domes linked by narrow corridors, laboratories, workshops, and living quarters. Outside the protective domes, the red dust swirled in unpredictable gusts, and alien life forms, strange, distant, and mostly harmless, moved cautiously across the dunes. Humans had learned to live alongside them, mostly avoiding conflict but always prepared. Alara finished her coffee quickly, knowing the day ahead would be demanding. She was a scientist specializing in terraforming, slowly transforming Erythra's soil and atmosphere to support more complex life. Today, she would visit the outer domes to monitor the growth of genetically engineered plants designed to thrive in the harsh conditions. She kissed Kale lightly on the cheek, and he squeezed her hand, his eyes briefly flickering with something she could not name. As she stepped into the morning light, Alara could see workers already at their stations, moving with disciplined purpose. Robots wheeled past, carrying supplies, while drones hovered overhead, scanning the environment for any changes. The hum of machinery and the murmur of human voices created a strange music that reminded her of home, even though Erythra was far from Earth. Her attention, however, could not escape Kale. Even when he appeared to be working on ordinary repairs in his workshop, she had always felt there was a hidden depth to him. Sometimes she caught him observing the alien equipment with an intensity that suggested he saw things no human could. Other times, she noticed his hands moving faster than the eye could follow, repairing intricate circuits and devices with ease. She had always admired him quietly, believing that he was simply extraordinarily intelligent. The day passed uneventfully, at least at first. Alara and her team moved through the outer domes, checking soil samples, adjusting nutrient cycles, and monitoring the growth of the plants. They laughed at minor mistakes, shared stories of life on other colonies, and enjoyed the quiet triumph of seeing their efforts take root in the alien soil. Kale's presence was subtle but constant. He had accompanied them to install new irrigation systems, moving among the group with ease and efficiency. It was late afternoon when the first warning arrived. The colony's central monitor flashed red, a stark contrast against the calm orange sky. The Council's message was brief but alarming. Unidentified ships were approaching Erythra's orbit. No communication had been received. Their intentions were unknown. Panic did not spread immediately, but the hum of the colony shifted. People began moving faster, checking their stations, preparing defenses. The workers in the outer domes hurried back toward the protective shields, while security teams moved to strategic positions. Alara felt her heart race, not with fear exactly, but with a sense of tension she could not ignore. Kale appeared beside her, calm as ever. "Let's see what we're dealing with," he said, already moving toward the central control room. Alara followed, noting how his presence seemed to steady the nerves of those around him. He did not panic. He assessed, calculated, and acted with precision. Even in the face of the unknown, he was unshakable. In the control room, holographic displays projected images of the approaching ships. They were unlike anything humans had encountered. Sleek, dark, and angular, they moved with a grace that suggested advanced technology far beyond human capability. Drones and reconnaissance ships appeared to have detected the colony, scanning its defenses. "We don't know what they want," one officer said, her voice tight with worry. "They've never responded to communications." "How do you know?" "You've done this before," Alara said, a mixture of awe and confusion in her voice. Kale smiled faintly. "I've studied patterns," he replied, "that's all." Humans on the ground watched the sky with a mixture of fear and fascination. And yet, Kale did not waver. He moved through the control room with quiet authority, making adjustments and observing the behavior of the ships. Alara realized that she had never truly seen him in action under pressure like this. She had always assumed he was ordinary, if brilliant. Now she was beginning to understand that his calm demeanor, his precise calculations, and his almost instinctive understanding of complex systems were not ordinary at all. There was something inside him, something hidden, waiting to reveal itself if the colony ever needed it. Hours passed in tense silence. The ships made no aggressive moves, but their presence was enough to test every human on Erythra. Some whispered about retreat, others speculated on diplomacy. But Kale continued to observe, to guide, to prepare. And though he said little, his presence alone seemed to embolden those around him. Finally, the first probe appeared. A small craft moved swiftly toward the colony, scanning the shields and attempting to penetrate the defenses. Security teams reacted immediately, but their efforts were clumsy. The probe's movements were too fast, too precise. Kale stepped forward. Without touching any console, he seemed to manipulate the system, adjusting energy fields with a skill that defied explanation. The probe hesitated, its sensors confused by patterns no human had programmed. It recoiled slightly, as if sensing an unseen force, and then retreated. Alara watched, her heart pounding. She realized that Kale's abilities went far beyond engineering genius. He was extraordinary, though he had chosen to live quietly, to blend in, to be ordinary beside her. And yet now, in the face of a potential threat to the entire colony, his true strength began to show, subtle but undeniable. When the probe disappeared back into space, Kale turned to Alara, his eyes calm and steady. "It's only the beginning," he said. "We need to be ready for what comes next." She had believed she knew him, that she understood the man she had married. But the truth was far greater than anything she could have imagined. And as she watched the stars above, she realized that life on Erythra would never be ordinary again. The night stretched on, quiet except for the distant hum of alien engines and the soft lights of the colony. Humans slept fitfully, prepared for the unknown, guided by a man they thought was ordinary. But Alara knew the truth. Kale was extraordinary, and his strength, patience, and hidden power would shape the days to come. And for the first time, she understood that ordinary was only what people believed it to be, and that extraordinary sometimes chose to hide in plain sight. The morning sun rose over Erythra with a brightness that did little to calm the nerves of the colony. Overnight, the alien presence had remained near orbit, silent and unmoving, but its shadow hung heavily over the settlement. The citizens moved with purpose, their usual routines replaced with drills, equipment checks, and nervous whispers. Alara made her way to the central control hub, her heart beating faster than usual. She had spent the night awake, thinking about Kale and the mysterious strength he had revealed against the probe. The image of him, calmly manipulating the defense systems as if the alien craft were a simple puzzle, lingered in her mind. There was something about him, something beyond human skill, but she didn't yet know how far it went. Kale was already at the hub when she arrived, standing in front of the holographic displays. He examined the readings, eyes scanning the alien ships in orbit. His fingers moved in subtle patterns, not on any interface but in the air itself, guiding energy fields, adjusting shield frequencies, and predicting the enemy's next moves. "You're up early," he said without looking at her, voice calm. "Sleep well." "It's not me you need to worry about, it's the colony." Sensors detected multiple small ships moving from the alien fleet, converging on the colony from 3 directions. They were faster than the probe, maneuvering with coordinated precision, clearly testing defenses. "Defense teams, get to your stations," Kale commanded. "I want shields at 70%, drones at intercept mode. Keep the outer perimeter covered, but don't overextend. Watch for patterns in movement. Humans think in straight lines, aliens think in curves. Adapt." The first wave of drones approached the colony. Security teams fired, energy pulses cutting through the thin atmosphere of Earthra, but most of the drones were too fast. They dodged, hovered, and retreated as if anticipating every move. Panic began to rise among the less experienced officers. Kale stepped forward, his hands moving as if playing an invisible instrument. Energy fields shifted, shields pulsing in a rhythm that only he seemed to understand. A drone that had been about to breach the perimeter suddenly faltered, caught in a field of interference. It spun helplessly, then retreated. Another drone approached, expecting to overwhelm human defenses, only to be neutralized before it could fire. Elara watched, amazed. She had always known Kale was brilliant, but this was something else. It wasn't just knowledge or skill. It was instinct, intuition, and power combined. The drones moved like chess pieces, and Kale was seeing several moves ahead, anticipating every action and reaction. One of the officers whispered to her, voice trembling. How is he doing that? I've never seen shields respond like this. With every successful interception, the colony's confidence grew. Humans who had been panicking began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could hold their ground. During a brief lull, Elara approached Kale. Tell me, she said quietly, how do you know what to do? How do you know how they'll move? The aliens don't think like humans. They follow logic we don't always recognize, but it's still logic. I just read it. Streams of alien code infiltrated the mainframe, bypassing firewalls and security protocols with speed humans could not match. Technicians scrambled, unable to counter the intrusion, and panic threatened to take hold again. Kale stepped forward, placing his hands lightly on the console. For a moment, he closed his eyes. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly, lines of code began to realign, energy flows adjusting as he guided the system. Within minutes, the intrusion was reversed, alien attempts nullified, and the colony's system stabilized. Gasps of astonishment echoed through the control hub. Officers stared at Kale, mouths open, as if they had witnessed magic. He simply opened his eyes and gave a small nod, returning to monitoring the approaching fleet. Elara's heart pounded. She realized she had underestimated the depth of his abilities. Kale had always seemed ordinary to the world, but in moments of crisis, he revealed something extraordinary, a combination of intelligence, instinct, and power that humans could not replicate. That afternoon, the alien fleet tested the colony more aggressively. Larger ships approached, scanning energy signatures and analyzing human movements. Kale continued to adapt defenses in real time. He issued subtle commands, corrected small errors, and created energy patterns that humans could barely understand, but that worked perfectly against alien tactics. It was during this confrontation that Elara saw the first hint of his true power. A large alien ship descended close to the colony, its energy weapons charging. Security teams prepared to fire, but Kale raised his hand. "Stop," he said. The room froze, all eyes were on him. Slowly, he extended both hands, palms outward. The air around him shimmered faintly. Energy flowed from the colony's shields, guided by Kale's will, forming an intricate pattern of force around the approaching ship. The alien vessel hesitated, as if sensing resistance beyond its calculations. Then, without firing, it veered sharply, retreating back into orbit. The officers stared in disbelief. The humans had not fired a single shot, and yet the alien attack had been neutralized. Kale looked ordinary again, calm, tired only in the sense of someone who had spent hours thinking, calculating, and guiding. But Elara knew the truth. He was far from ordinary. That evening, the colony gathered in the central dome. People shared stories of the day's events, voices filled with awe and excitement. Children stared at the sky, imagining the strange ships that had threatened their home. Adults whispered about the calm man who had guided them, who had turned panic into victory. Elara found Kale standing apart from the crowd, gazing at the stars. She joined him, feeling the weight of what had happened. "You're incredible," she said softly. He shook his head. "I'm not, the colony is. Humans are. I guide, I protect, I see patterns. But the courage and ingenuity of humans is what truly matters." Night fell again, and the alien ships remained in orbit, silent watchers. The colony had survived the first real test, and for the first time the humans understood that their presence in the galaxy was not insignificant. They were not weak or ordinary. Guided by Kale, they could stand against threats that would have terrified any other species. Elara stayed by Kale's side, feeling a mixture of awe and something deeper, love and pride. She had believed her husband was ordinary, and perhaps that belief had been necessary for him to live a normal life among humans. But now she knew the truth. Kale was extraordinary, and his power was only the beginning of what humans could achieve when they believed in themselves. The colony rested that night, preparing for what would surely come next. And above the red dunes of Urethra, the stars shone as witnesses to a quiet miracle. A human settlement guided by one man, united in spirit, ready to meet the universe not with fear, but with ingenuity, courage, and hope. For the first time, Elara allowed herself to imagine the possibilities. If humans could survive this, if they could grow stronger under Kale's guidance, then the galaxy might be full of challenges, but also full of triumphs. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the real test was only beginning. The next day began under an uneasy calm. The alien fleet remained in orbit, silent and observing, but the colony could sense the tension in every movement. Humans were alert, their routines interrupted, yet there was a strange sense of unity, a shared determination to face whatever might come. Elara walked through the central dome, noticing the careful preparation around every corner. Engineers checked power systems repeatedly, security teams reviewed strategies, and children were kept in safer zones, their curiosity tempered by adult guidance. Kale was at the heart of it all, not in a commanding way that demanded attention, but in a presence that naturally drew focus. He moved through the corridors with quiet confidence, stopping to adjust a shield output here, redirect a patrol drone there. Every gesture seemed ordinary, but Elara knew better. His mind worked at a speed no human could match, seeing patterns in the alien movements, predicting their choices, and preparing defenses before a threat even became visible. Elara approached him while he monitored the perimeter systems. "Kale," she said softly, "do you think they'll attack today?" "They are studying us, learning, testing our limits. If they attack, it won't be reckless. They will aim to probe our weaknesses first. That is what humans do best." Security teams prepared to respond, but the alien ship seemed to anticipate every action, retreating just before human defenses could engage effectively. Elara watched from the central hub, tense and anxious. She saw Kale step forward, his hands moving in the air as if conducting a silent orchestra. Energy patterns shifted, shields pulsed with subtle adjustments, and drones repositioned in ways that no one else could have calculated. One by one, alien probes that had advanced toward the colony were repelled, sometimes without firing a single human weapon. "What is he doing?" whispered one officer beside her. Elara shook her head. "I don't know. But it's working." A larger vessel, dark and angular, entered the atmosphere at high speed. It was clearly a warship, heavily armed, its energy systems glowing with power beyond human understanding. Security teams scrambled to respond, firing every available weapon, but the ship moved faster than any human reaction could manage. Kale's hands rose instinctively, and Elara felt a strange energy shift in the air. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration barely noticeable, but it grew steadily stronger. The shields around the colony shimmered, forming an intricate pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Kale's movements. The alien ship approached, weapons primed, but something in its sensors hesitated. Elara's heart raced as she realized the truth. Kale was not simply directing the defenses. He was interacting with the energy itself, bending it, guiding it, shaping it in ways that no human had ever learned. The ship faltered, its movements jerky and uncertain. Then, almost impossibly, it veered away, retreating back into orbit without firing a single shot. The room erupted with whispers of awe. Humans stared at Kale, struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. He seemed ordinary again, calm and collected, but the power he had wielded was extraordinary, beyond anything humanity had faced before. Elara approached him, unable to contain her questions. "Kale, what are you?" Humans are capable of more than anyone believes. Ingenuity, courage, adaptation, these are the true strengths. Kale had kept his true abilities hidden, living among humans as one of them, and yet when the colony needed him most, he revealed what had always been inside. The alien fleet did not retreat entirely. Smaller ships remained in orbit, scanning, observing, and analyzing human responses. Kale moved quickly, issuing subtle adjustments to shields, drones, and power systems. Each modification was precise, calculated, and incredibly effective. The humans followed, learning from him, their confidence growing with every successful maneuver. By late afternoon, the situation reached a critical point. The aliens launched a coordinated strike, sending multiple ships simultaneously toward different sections of the colony. Humans responded with weapons, energy barriers, and drones, but the fleet was relentless. Panic threatened to take hold, and some of the younger officers froze under the pressure. Kale did not hesitate. He moved through the control hub with fluid precision, guiding every action, anticipating every movement, and neutralizing threats before they became dangerous. His hands seemed to manipulate the very flow of energy around the colony, and Alara watched, spellbound. "Kale, you're amazing," she whispered, unable to look away. He gave a faint nod, eyes focused. "It's not me, it's the humans. I guide, they act. Together we are stronger than any alien machine." They observed Kale, adapted to his instructions, and began improvising in ways that surprised even him. Humans were using their creativity to anticipate alien tactics, creating diversions and finding weak points in the ship's patterns. It was ingenuity combined with instinct, the very essence of what made humanity extraordinary. Hours passed, and the alien assault gradually weakened. Ships that had once been aggressive now hesitated, unable to predict or counter the humans' adaptive responses. Kale's energy guidance, combined with the colonists' ingenuity, created a defensive system that was almost unstoppable. One by one, alien ships withdrew, leaving only a few to maintain surveillance. When the dust settled, the control hub was quiet except for the low hum of systems. Humans looked around at each other, faces pale but filled with pride. They had survived not through sheer strength, but through coordination, intelligence, and courage. And at the center of it all, Kale stood quietly, ordinary once more, his extraordinary actions already becoming the stuff of whispered legend. Alara approached him, her heart full. "Kale, why didn't you tell me?" And now, in the crucible of threat, he had shown the truth. Ordinary humans could become extraordinary when guided, inspired, and united. That evening, the colony held a quiet meeting. Officers and workers gathered, sharing stories of the day, discussing tactics, and learning from mistakes. The alien fleet had tested them, but it had also taught them valuable lessons. And although the ships remained in orbit, silent and watchful, the humans felt a newfound confidence. They had faced something beyond their understanding and survived, guided by one man and the strength of their own hearts. Alara found Kale once more, standing on a balcony overlooking the colony. The sky was dark, stars twinkling faintly above, and the red dunes stretched into the distance. She reached for his hand, feeling warmth and calm. "You've changed everything," she said softly. He looked at her, eyes reflecting both the stars and the calm certainty he always carried. "No," he replied. "Humans have always been capable, I just helped them see it." Humanity's potential was far greater than most could imagine, and Kale had given them a glimpse. His true power was not simply in his abilities, but in his faith in humans, in their courage, creativity, and determination. As they stood together, the alien fleet continued its silent watch, unaware of the force it had underestimated. The colony had survived, guided by one extraordinary man, but strengthened by the collective ingenuity of ordinary humans. And somewhere deep inside, Alara knew that the battles to come would test them further. But with Kale and the humans united, they had already begun to discover the power of hope, resilience, and human spirit. And so Earthra prepared for the next challenge, its people wiser, stronger, and ready. Guided by Kale, they were no longer just a small human colony on a distant planet. They were the living proof that humans, when united and inspired, could stand against any force in the universe. The morning on Earthra began with a tense stillness. The red sun rose over the dunes, casting long shadows across the colony. Humans moved through their daily routines, but their faces carried a mix of determination and anxiety. Everyone knew the alien fleet remained in orbit, silent and calculating, waiting for another opportunity to test the colony. The earlier victories had boosted morale, but the sense of impending challenge remained heavy. Alara walked through the corridors, observing the preparations. Workers tightened shield generators, engineers inspected drones, and security teams rehearsed maneuvers. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and purposeful. Humans were learning quickly, adapting to the reality of a threat that pushed their limits. Kale was already at the control hub, standing in front of the holographic displays. His posture was calm but alert, his eyes scanning data streams and energy readings with an intensity that was almost mesmerizing. Alara noticed how naturally the humans around him followed his guidance. They trusted him completely, responding to instructions without hesitation, even when the actions seemed unconventional or counterintuitive. "Good morning," Alara said softly, stepping closer. "Morning," Kale replied, his gaze never leaving the displays. "Today will be different. They are no longer just testing. They are probing for weaknesses. We must be ready for anything." "And we will be. Humans are ready." Humans responded with every defense at their disposal, but the aliens seemed prepared, anticipating actions and countering quickly. Alara watched as Kale stepped forward, his hands moving in the air as he guided energy flows, adjusted shield patterns, and repositioned drones with unerring precision. His actions were calm, deliberate, and impossibly effective. Alien attacks were neutralized before they could strike, and humans moved with a confidence born from experience and guidance. Yet this time, the aliens escalated further. A massive vessel, larger than any seen before, descended toward the colony's central dome. Its energy readings were off the charts, and its movements suggested a combination of brute force and advanced strategy. Security teams prepared to fire, but they knew their weapons might not be enough. Kale's expression remained calm. "Stay focused," he said to the officers. "Observe patterns, anticipate movements, and act in coordination. Humans can accomplish more than machines expect." The air seemed to shimmer slightly as Kale's energy guidance intensified. Shields pulsed with intricate patterns, drones moved with coordinated precision, and humans adjusted in real time, improvising alongside Kale's guidance. The massive ship fired its first energy blast. The shields absorbed the attack, but it was stronger than anything the colony had encountered. Kale moved his hands, guiding energy flows with precise control. The blast was diverted, fragmented, and neutralized without allowing damage to the colony. Humans watched in awe, realizing that Kale was not just guiding. They were witnessing something extraordinary, almost beyond comprehension. Alara approached him, voice tense. "Kale, how are you doing this?" "It is not just me. It is humans working together, guided by understanding and courage. We are stronger as one." His presence was steady, unshakable, and inspiring. Humans were no longer reacting. They were anticipating, adapting, and executing strategies that seemed almost impossible. Alara watched as a group of engineers, inspired by Kale's guidance, improvised a defensive mechanism using spare energy modules and drones. The creation was simple in design, but effective in practice. The alien ships, unable to predict human creativity, faltered in their attack. Kale's eyes flicked to the engineers, a faint smile of approval crossing his face. Humans were learning, adapting, and becoming a force that even the aliens could not easily counter. The battle reached its peak when the massive vessel focused its energy on the colony's main power generator. A blast of energy struck, overwhelming the outer shields. Humans scrambled to respond, fear rising in their eyes. Kale's hands moved swiftly, energy flowing in patterns that seemed almost alive. The shield stabilized, fragments of the blast were redirected harmlessly into the atmosphere, and the generator remained intact. Alara's heart raced. She realized fully that Kale's power was not about destruction. It was about control, guidance, and amplification of human potential. He did not simply fight for them. He allowed humans to fight alongside him, teaching them to see possibilities, anticipate outcomes, and act with courage. When the alien assault finally slowed, the humans gathered in the central dome. Exhaustion was evident, but so was pride. They had faced a force far superior in technology, and yet they had survived. They had adapted, innovated, and followed the guidance of one extraordinary man who had chosen to live as one of them. Alara found Kale once more, standing on a balcony overlooking the colony. The sky was dark, dotted with distant stars, and the red dunes stretched endlessly below. She reached for his hand, feeling warmth and reassurance. "You've shown them what humans can do," she said softly. "You've changed everything." Humans are capable of far more than anyone believes. Courage, ingenuity, and adaptation, that is humanity's true power. And Kale had shown them that they could achieve more when they believed in themselves, when they acted together, and when they trusted in the power of the human spirit. That night, the colony rested, preparing for the next potential threat. The alien ships remained in orbit, watching, silent, and calculating. But the humans of Earthra were different now. They had faced the impossible and survived. Guided by Kale, they had become a force that was more than technology. It was courage, creativity, and unity in action. Alara stood beside Kale on the balcony, looking out over the sleeping colony. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. "Perhaps," Kale replied, "but we will be ready." Humans are never defeated when they face challenges together. And as they looked at the stars above Earthra, she knew that no matter what came next, humanity would face it with courage, ingenuity, and the quiet, unstoppable power of ordinary people becoming extraordinary. The colony slept that night, but in every heart, a spark had been lit. Humans were no longer merely survivors. They were defenders, innovators, and a force to be reckoned with. Kale had shown them what they could achieve, but it was their courage and determination that would define the battles ahead. And as the alien ships hovered silently in orbit, unaware of the fire they had awakened, the people of Earthra prepared for the challenges to come. Guided by Kale, inspired by each other, and strengthened by their own ingenuity, they were ready to face whatever the universe could throw at them. For the first time, they understood that human potential was limitless, and that together they were unstoppable. The day dawned on Earthra with an unusual stillness. The red sun rose slowly over the dunes, casting long, pale shadows across the colony. The humans were awake earlier than usual, moving with purpose, knowing that this day could be the one that determined their survival. The alien fleet, which had tested and probed them for days, now made its move in full force. Massive ships broke from orbit, energy weapons glowing with intensity, engines pulsing as they advanced toward the colony. Alara moved through the central dome, observing the preparation. Engineers and security teams had been working tirelessly all night, adjusting shields, reinforcing structures, and coordinating drones. There was fear, yes, but also an unmistakable sense of resolve. Humans had faced the unknown before, guided by Kale, and now they faced it together. Kale stood in the central hub, calm and focused, his eyes scanning the approaching fleet. He raised a hand, issuing subtle adjustments to the shields, energy fields, and drone patrols. His movements were precise and fluid, as though he were conducting an invisible orchestra. Energy pulsed and shifted, flowing around the colony in patterns that humans could not fully comprehend but instinctively followed. "They are coming faster this time," one officer said, voice tight with tension. "The fleet is larger. Their attack is coordinated unlike before. They just need guidance, focus, and courage." And humans, inspired by him, had learned to act with the same clarity and courage. The first wave struck with full intensity. Alien ships unleashed energy blasts that streaked across the sky, targeting the colony's defenses. Shields flared and pulsed, absorbing and redirecting the attacks, while drones maneuvered with speed and precision. Humans followed Kale's guidance, coordinating actions that had become almost instinctive after days of training and adaptation. Alara noticed the younger officers, who had panicked in earlier skirmishes, now moving confidently, issuing orders and improvising strategies. Kale's presence had not only guided them, but had awakened a new level of courage and creativity. Humans were no longer simply reacting. They were anticipating, adapting, and countering in ways the aliens could not predict. The massive central ship descended closer to the colony, energy weapons primed and focused. The humans' defenses strained under the pressure, and panic threatened to rise again. But Kale stepped forward, his hands moving gracefully, guiding energy flows with almost imperceptible gestures. The shields around the colony shimmered with a brilliance that seemed alive, forming intricate patterns of light and energy that pulsed in rhythm with his movements. Alara could feel the power in the air, subtle but undeniable. It was not raw strength alone. It was control, precision, and focus, magnified by Kale's will. The massive alien ship hesitated, its movements jerky and uncertain as if sensing resistance far beyond its calculations. "Hold your ground," Kale called to the officers. "Observe, anticipate, and act together." Humans can overcome more than machines expect. Soldiers and technicians worked seamlessly, following Kale's subtle guidance, and the alien attacks began to falter. Then Kale revealed the full extent of his abilities. Extending both hands toward the massive ship, he focused energy into a precise, flowing pattern that interacted with the alien vessel systems. The shields pulsed brighter, and the air seemed to hum with power. The alien ship's energy weapons failed to fire effectively, its movements slowed, and finally it veered sharply, retreating to maintain distance. Alara's breath caught. She realized that Kale's power was not just guidance, it was the amplification of human potential. He did not destroy, he directed, protected, and enhanced the abilities of those around him. Humans were part of his strength, and together they had become something greater than the sum of their parts. The smaller ships in the fleet tried to respond, launching coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Kale's hands moved in a blur, adjusting shields, redirecting energy, and positioning drones with unerring accuracy. Humans responded in kind, using their creativity and courage to exploit weaknesses in the alien ship's formations. One group of colonists created a decoy system using spare drones and energy reflectors, drawing several ships away from the main settlement. Another team used rapid calculations to predict energy blast trajectories and reposition shields at the last second. Alara watched in awe as humans she had known for years displayed brilliance under pressure, improvising solutions that Kale encouraged and amplified. Fear had become focus, panic had become strategy, and ordinary humans were performing feats that the aliens could not anticipate. Hours passed in a blur of energy, strategy, and precise coordination. The alien fleet began to retreat, their attacks less frequent and less effective. The humans had not only defended their home, they had demonstrated resilience, creativity, and courage far beyond the aliens' expectations. Kale's energy guidance remained constant, subtle but powerful, his calm presence inspiring every action. Finally, the battle ended. The alien ships withdrew to orbit, leaving Earthra intact. The colony erupted in quiet celebration, their exhaustion tempered by pride. Humans had survived the greatest threat they had ever faced, guided by one extraordinary man but strengthened by their own ingenuity and determination. Alara found Kale standing on the balcony, overlooking the sleeping colony. The sky was dark, dotted with distant stars, and the red dunes stretched endlessly below. She reached for his hand, feeling warmth and reassurance. "You've done it," she said softly. "No," he replied, eyes calm and reflective. "Humans have done it, I only guided. The courage, creativity, and determination you've shown, this is your power." Kale had always been extraordinary, but he had not done this alone. Humans had discovered strength within themselves, inspired and guided, and the combination had turned the tide. The alien fleet had underestimated not just Kale, but humanity as a whole. The colony rested that night, but the lessons of the battle remained. Humans had learned that even in the face of overwhelming technology, they could adapt, innovate, and survive. They had seen what was possible when they trusted in each other, followed guidance, and used creativity alongside courage. Alara stayed beside Kale on the balcony, looking out over the quiet settlement. "Do you think they'll return?" she asked. "Perhaps," he said, eyes scanning the stars. "But it does not matter. Humans are ready. They have discovered their own strength. We can face any challenge together." The next morning, the colony began repairs and upgrades, strengthening shields, optimizing drones, and improving energy systems. Humans were no longer frightened by the unknown. They had faced it and survived. They had learned that their greatest power lay not in technology alone, but in their unity, intelligence, and courage. Alara worked alongside her fellow scientists, inspired by the victory and by the realization that humans could rise to any challenge. Kale moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement, never taking credit, but always reinforcing the idea that human potential was limitless. The alien ships lingered in orbit for days, silent observers, no longer testing but wary of the unexpected resilience and creativity of the humans below. Earthra had become more than a colony. It had become a symbol of human ingenuity, courage, and unity in the face of the unknown. Alara and Kale stood together on the balcony one evening, the red sun sinking below the horizon. "We've changed things," she said softly. "No," he replied, looking at her with calm certainty. "Humans have, I only helped them see it. This is just the beginning. The galaxy is full of challenges, but humans are ready. Courage, ingenuity, adaptation, these will always carry us forward." She had believed her husband was ordinary, and for much of their life together, he had lived that way by choice. But now, she understood fully that Kale's true power had always been extraordinary, not only in his abilities, but in his faith in humanity. He had shown them their own strength, and together humans had become unstoppable. As the stars shimmered above Earthra, the colony looked toward the future with confidence. They had faced the greatest challenge of their lives and emerged stronger, guided by one man who had chosen to live as one of them, yet extraordinary in ways that inspired greatness in all. And so, humanity on Earthra stood tall, ready to face the universe with courage, unity, and the unshakable knowledge that ordinary humans, when inspired and guided, could achieve the extraordinary.